In the last movie, we began to look at deployment diagrams. We'll finish that off in this movie. I'm going to add a new diagram to the home network package called Project 123, which will represent the deployment for a particular customer. It's going to be a deployment diagram. I'll also add a diagram where we can show the manifest dependencies between artifacts and components. I'll call that HA manifest. That will also be a deployment diagram, though it could equally be a component diagram. Let's start with the HA manifest diagram. What I want to show here is the relationship between the artifact and the component. So I'm going to drag the artifact x10comms.jar in from the project browser into the diagram, and I'm adding it as a link. Then I'm going to open up the component view, and I'm going to drag the component x10comms into the diagram, also as a link. I don't need to show the port. Now I'll add the manifest dependency between them. I'll use the quick linker in Enterprise Architect. So I drag from the artifact to the component and select manifest from the menu of options that appears. This maintains traceability within the project from the component, which is made up of classes, to the jar file that manifests it and will be deployed. Now I'll add some instances to the Project 123 deployment diagram. Everything that I need has already been created as types, so I can drag them from the project browser. I'll start with nodes and devices. I'll add in controller, and this time I'm going to add it as an instance. I'll give it the name central. I'll add in X10 network, again as an instance. That doesn't need a name. Then I'll add in a couple of devices, just to show that it's the same for devices as it is for nodes. I'll add open-closed device, and I'll call that garage door, and I'll add induction sensor, and I'll call that driveway. I'll add communication paths stereotyped as X10 between them. I'm just setting the direction of these communication paths to be unspecified, as they don't need to be directional. And I'm setting the stereotype to be X10. Now I'm going to add the execution environment Spring onto the controller as an instance. So this represents the particular instance of Spring running on the controller called Central for this particular customer. Finally, I'll add the two artifacts and the deployment specification as instances and show the dependencies between them as in the type diagram. So there's the diagram that shows the configuration for Project 123 for a particular customer, showing instances rather than types. We've now added deployment diagrams to our model. We've got one called Home Network that shows the different nodes and devices in the system, though they could all be either nodes or devices, preferably devices as they represent hardware. We have a diagram that shows the structure of the software deployed onto the controller. We have a diagram that shows how the X10comms component is manifested by the x10comms.jar artifact. All of these diagrams so far show types. And we've also created a diagram that shows the setup of the specific instances for a particular customer project, in which all the elements represent instances rather than types. This brings us to the end of the main part of this course where we've looked at the main types of UML diagrams. The final few movies look at the relationships between the different types of diagrams and make some observations about how you might use them.